Good afternoon, Abbotsford residents. I'm Mr. Pelican. I'm running for your Commander-in-Chief here of Abbotsford to help my city and go after the organized crime and remove the Abbotsford APD. What was supposed to start out as a joke and a laughing matter got real serious, deadly serious. The Abbotsford Police top veterans believed that it would be impossible to prove their elite ring of organized crime and how they could go through the back doors, keep their jobs, keep their company, and keep their positions, and friends would clean it. It got out of hand far too far. They believed under the name of policing were untouchable. Investigators, task force, commanders, and leaders of leaders figured that the general public should be kicked, abused, and everything. We were in charge, the same as Adolf Hitler rose with the SS. They knew that they could lean on other companies clear unless we charges don't go forward, and the bullshit just began under that Abbotsford Police. Men and women that used the database to track people's phones, their addresses, and their houses for threats for the establishment of Henry Brown, Ed Fast, Mike DeYoung. When Darren Brown opened the doors on the threat on Councillor Mogale with the task force because Henry needed the city for all the money and the city taxpayers and designed jobs his way for his friends, Abbotsford had no say. We saw that on the Cooper's farm when Henry changed the decision, and he knew he snuck in there with his wife to change it and blamed the Peter Sparanese. Henry was loading job sites that he was tied to, Ron Funk of the verse, but Henry had ties in Victoria and Ottawa. He could lean through Ed Fast. It was no longer that Abbotsford community could walk into their MPs and their officials and say the mayor is in corruption with our police force, and Ottawa and Victoria got involved because the MP and the MLA were both involved. One was smart. He was a former prosecutor, Attorney General Mike DeYoung, and he said, you cut a deal with Henry owns Abbotsford. Ed Fast asked a pastor of a church to steal documents so he could look into it on a lawsuit that was coming against Henry. The negligence just didn't. Ed knew that Henry's son in front of him, collaborating, making him proving officer, Henry's brother at the police board, Ron Funk, counselors up in his house. Henry was warning him perks and decisions and then holding him over the barrel to say, you know, look, you step out of the way. I saw him attack Bruce Behrman and manipulate him to get him out of the way in the eyes. When anybody didn't agree with Henry, it wasn't about debate. It was Henry's muscle. But the Abbotsford men and women that sued up to serve and protect were in high elite organized crime and were running wild if the police can get away. When I learned all the threats of my life, I had to walk around this town with lawyers beside me and everywhere because the Abbotsford police believed that they were doing damage control to save their bosses. Well, Mike Sir knew that Henry's Keelan Olenoff threatened one of his officers, drop a video and lawsuits on Henry or I will personally bury you. It wasn't that there was investigations coming, it was a cover-up. Henry, the task force and everything. The written and the disgust of Abbotsford police, always leaning other police forces, we gotta work together and everything. Cooper's farm was a bad, real bad. Henry manipulated the newspaper and friends that he did. It was establishment. Darren Brown opened the door and it was like going into Fort St. Knox and seeing all the gold, nobody around. When Eric Nival was asked, and he was the one that started podcasts against Henry Brown and the shenanigans of his son and everything. It was the city officials that brought me in, the bureaucrats, where Henry was screaming at Nival, how dare you embarrass me about that golf course and everything. Nival is a CPA, he owns Nival and Abbotsford. He was our friend here. He came in our houses and like a judge said, be careful of them who befriend you, they will betray you. We saw that with Jesus. We saw that in the end, who betrayed him and who stood beside Jesus in the end. Nival came in our houses, he looked at all the damage. He was there with the dignitaries and leaders. There was Gurpreet Rai from the NDP, and there was the newspaper, I believe that guy came in. There was John Rastad, and many leaders came in on the negligence of Henry scamming a job next to his to get lifts to move Riverside, free it up, I'm the businessman. The Abbotsford police that Henry sat on the board were controlled. Henry's attempted murder on my life and then was told that I need to finish this so I can load Ross Siemens. Vicky Hopes, we don't want Mr. Pelican run in the newspaper. Greg Toes, we want you to bribe Mr. Pelican, we need Ross. All to elaborate their rich, filthy pockets. It was out of control because the RCMP mission knew that this was an organization of a gang and it wasn't hearsay, but how deep did this dirty rabbit hole go with our premiers and everything? And changing zonings without the community saying, I say what will go. We need $100 million for Abbotsford police and shithole vehicles, prostitutes, no proper training, no morals, nothing. Beating kids in Yale secondary, telling kids up at Margaret Stenister that you're black, you can't be in a skate park at night, picking up prostitute, racing Dodge Chargers in the name of policing. Abbotsford policing are the best in the name. Gangs, this Christmas we're gonna be out and we're gonna enforce drinking and driving, and you got snow tires, racing a Dodge Charger in the middle of the winter, fleeing from accidents, but leaving a man for dead. All these are inside information of bureaucrats, and there's the average individual like me coming forward and giving me the 911 calls, and the top investigators, we're upstairs dealing with what we can. Colin Watts, this guy, smashing my camera and my phone, and then making allegations he was going to charge me because of threats. I got people that'll lie for me, lie for the Abbotsford police. This ain't a police force. I walked right through it and shit kicked it, and all it can do is Langley, the top guys of Abbotsford, Langley, the top guys of Abbotsford, somebody in Victoria. It's got to go. So I'm here today to talk about Eric Knight. Abbotsford City saw what I did to Patricia Dreesen of Archway Community Services, the money and the fraud, and know that I would forensic audit, telling you about my growing up experience from Wall Financial to Mike Dakota to everybody. Great man. I can find that. I don't need Abbotsford police. I'll do it. I'll do it because I got to hide it for Henry and Ed. I'll do it. Mike DeYoung's illegal party at the height of the coronavirus with George Perry and everybody to endorse Dave City. This is not. You don't get involved in politics. Me and the Abbotsford police will run Abbotsford. Look at my sergeant. Their sergeant's going to be dragged on the world stage because this was families, and this is disgusting. And this is why we have our courts, because they deal a punishment. And we know now from the experience, all the men that are, we died in the line of duty, they're being targeted because these heinous, filthy garbage behind the back of these private police from municipality to municipality. And we saw it when Mike Sears didn't come and say, great building, great building. We saw it when Bob fled, we saw it when Henry fled, and we saw it when I stood on the world YouTube with all Abbotsford residents on Henry's neglect. That the big millionaire with Ed Fast, the lawyer, Mark Warkentine, a lawyer that was in England when they were frauding my elections and signs, couldn't say I'm suing you for a defamation, character, slander, my reputation, and nothing. Mark's got his head down. I don't know how else. Let's begin. When Mike DeYoung was running, the 5 leaders of Abbotsford were guaranteed the strength and the manipulation to beat Superman Gill. It was Pierre Poilievre that met me in Clark Freightways. And I made it clear what that shit kicker Ed Fast was doing to Abbotsford residents and homeowners, and he backbenched them. He backbenched his deals because it was coming out, and Pierre was going into election. There was no way Mike DeYoung was going to get the driver's seat by Abbotsford residents because he was going to go in. Then he would walk over to the Liberals or wherever he was going to go to cut a deal to seize everything in Abbotsford when he had an oath and he was an MLA and he had a duty, and he abused that office for his gain and his friends' gains. Oh, Mike DeYoung, I'm a prosecutor. I got all the angles. We saw it when Kevin Falcon met with me, and Kevin Falcon found out and shut it down. We saw the money with Marcus Delvis and Dave Sadu to buy the nominations when Andrew Wilkinson, we sat in his office in Vancouver and shut it down. It was backroom players. This community was not running by its voice in its town. It was, I own it, it's mine, I own it. And that is why I stand every day and say the Abbotsford police men and women, we need a police force and we need the best. We need the RCMP. But every one of them shit kickers that touch my street or out there have to be let go and fired and kicked out. That is unacceptable. They're lies, they're scams. The name will hold me, the name. Their constant abuse on Abbotsford. Oh, now reality set on. So you know reality? I'm not going to be with Henry. I don't want to take a picture. I didn't even appear when the APDF with the Police Foundation raised the money. And oh, there was Sandy Blue, no Irwin Brown, no Ed Fast, no police chief, no one. We raised $50,000. Feel sorry, the great police. Abbotsford went under me, under my leadership, through outside ties with people to do our own investigation and bring the truth to the world. and bring the truth to help my community and remove the Abbotsford Police Task Force out. Out! They're men and women that stood there when the task force knew and the safety standards knew that Olenoff was carrying threats for Henry, lied there was break-ins. They should have investigated and suspended Olenoff, and then came to them witnesses. They didn't. Well, save the company, the big chief and the corporal chief and the general. Look at me, I got my gun, I got my badge. It's long overdue and we need to stop it. That is why, as your mayor, I will put a stop to it by demanding that the RCMP seize Abbotsford under my leadership and take it over. Eric Nivel. I'm calling you out on my podcast. When Nivel said he wasn't getting involved in politics to run Rianne Gasper, Bruce Bam, and Corky Neufeld, then when the federal election came, he wasn't getting involved. He was sitting it out. He wouldn't help Steve Schaefer. Remember these ones? He wouldn't help Steve Schaefer or nobody else. Nivel ran Mike DeYoung illegally with his signs in Mill Lake and everything as his financial agent, and he knew that. Well, there had to be a reward. Dreesen's in trouble now with Archway. Dreesen's saying Henry caused this all, and you guys should have kicked Henry out of the city as mayor and demanded the RCMP investigate his hit and run, his threats, his son in it. So Dreesen's now team gets mad, and I'm going to go tell Mr. Pelican about Eric Nivel. Okay, let's talk. In return, Nivel has to probably back Ross Siemens now and get behind Ross because they need him. So in my opinion, this is my opinion, I believe what was said. Mike DeYoung probably went to Nivel and said, listen, Nivel, Abbotsford people respect you, and they wouldn't say no to you if they see me with you. They wouldn't. Yes, they would. That Nivel never betted on that the good people even meet. Because it's just morally wrong that you did this, you led this conquest, and then you bailed to say I'm done. Said, probably, Henry squashed you through Abbotsford for business because we knew what Henry was doing, right? Unless you operate. And Henry was a manipulator and a bully. We saw that in the city with my own eyes. Probably said, your CPA is hurting. Probably. This is my opinion. And said, if you run me in return to help your business, I will give you a Ron Funk, a diverse CPA business and stuff. By gosh, a CPA that knows numbers and digits and responsible to the federal government of Revenue Canada. And the man that ran podcast, if that's true by Patricia Dreesen's team, Nivel, and you're not running a podcast calling Patricia Dreesen being a city council on Archway and the stuff Archway did, I just did a video today on the 34K, the 32K they got when Abbotsford is the second lowest in domestic violence, and but the underwriters of Archway with the Abbotsford City desisted that Archway gets this thing rather than pass it and say Chilliwack's violence is higher, domestic violence, let's send the money there. And they had to get everything. The farmers' money, the flood and everything. Maybe Nivel's off rails, maybe this will get him back on the rails. And maybe he's going to run Ross Siemens, and Ross now, the homeless shelter being closed. The rocks down on Gladys, we don't see Nivel running podcast stall on this, and this is a man that believed when I became mayor I would hire him for financial audits. That is never going to happen. I'll bring the best in. A zoning changed here on Ron Funk from 200 to 400. That was Henry's partner, and Nivel started this, the zoning. How does that justify that you're a CPA and you know these numbers don't jive, but you go along with saying Henry took the voice away from Abbotsford? He jinxed Cooper's Farm, knowing he had city councils. The 3,000 people didn't get a say. I say what goes, baby. Went in there with his wife on Sunday when Darren Down showed. Then he changed the numbers on the police building. Feel sorry. Abbotsford police are facing the largest gangs across the world and in Canada. We need a big police building. Huge. 84 million. Nobody will say no to that. And our hospitals are suffering. Our drug centers are suffering, and we'll get it in policing because that I can get money to Unitech. Unitech goes into problems when it contracts the job, doesn't hold accountable, and we're going to give it another 20 million cost overruns. Ross Siemens is 14 million buying the building up by Rona. Nivel doesn't talk about it, so I wonder if Nivel's going to run Ross Siemens to get behind him. And then Ross Siemens runs his signs here illegal with Abbotsford First. Well, Mark Warkedy, the city council and lawyer that Henry loaded to the police board, remember, I got him on the police board, Henry, remember that statement, cheats here and goes after everybody. Remember when MLA, or the city councilor, which now is your MLA, ran here, they went and got her signs. and they tore all the signs down. Remember that? So he's trying to build his team back. I'll go beside Nival. Nival's tied to Bruce. He's tied to all these people. Maybe we can pull it. It was done illegal. Nival was there when my kids, pastors of church, and us knew Henry was attacking him, and worked our asses off all night putting his signs up legitimately where he was being threatened by Bill Flinton. Nival knew what Gabriel did by holding the election, the by-election list, and the electoral list not to have my team. He knew what Ron Funk did when they ran into diverse. The city of Abbotsford, Dreesen's team telling me, Nival, 100%, this is her words, her team, is diverse, is CPA, and diverse is treading water because of all the trouble on social media by me. Diverse ain't going to be trailed in water. It came in here and frauded Abbotsford taxpayers. Figured that David Eby in the province would say there's a shortage of houses we're little. When the Premier stood on TV and made claims that he was going after illegal clubhouses that were set up and getting the RCM to do it, there is no difference here. They took away Abbotsford's voice not to speak at the city. Henry closed Oakman mic down and he was shutting it down unless you went upstairs. And if you made a fussle, Henry used his Abbotsford police to threaten. So I got the question for Eric Nival. Is this what you got rewarded for running Mike Dion, turning on your fellow Abbotsford residents, holding pride and fighting for Abbotsford community and doing what was right? Everybody has a price that can be bought. And this sure looks like this was a reward for Eric Nival, because Nival knew, the same as me, when the superintendents here knew that I was Mr. Pelican, they said, you can come here and build. We know all your reputation, how you built Vancouver and everything. We'll give you a good job. We'll sit you down with Rob Funk. I said, you tell Rob Funk, I want to be commander of Abbotsford and chief of Abbotsford. I saw residents going for their zoning and houses delayed while Henry was giving preferential treatment and shutting them down for 2 to 3 years, the South Asians and everybody. He was an illegal criminal ring and owed our city and took back doors and shortcuts to make and fill his pockets that led to organized crime and buying officials and loading elections. Mr. Pelican only wants one thing with my residents, and that is clear. The RCMP, and remove my Abbotsford police, I'll get in charge. So the question now to Abbotsford residents, as Paul Harvey used to say on his newscast, now you know the rest of the story. Good day.